Hey, what's up, guys? So I did get the win yesterday, and it popped me back in the top 100. And once again, I don't know how long I'll last here because it is a different ball game that I'd have to start getting adjusted to. But these are the guys that are in the vicinity of me. Let's just go a little bit here so you guys can see what's going on. And here's the ranking. I'm going against Pimpe. So you can see by his score, he's not clearing the room each time. So clearly, he's got a serious defense. And so let's take a look at his stats. This is Pimpe, and here are my stats. So I did get my attacks in. And so what we'll do here is, I just want you guys to see how close I am to M3 and what it takes to get there. But what we'll do is we'll just go into the attacks. And then once Pimpe attacks, you get to see what I'm running on defense, which is really pretty much the same as all week. But this is definitely a brain teaser on how to get through his rooms. Okay, guys, so let's just take a look. So I sacked this room, and as you guys can see, I didn't clear it. So what could have been needed was a double sack. As you'll see with this sack, I think it pulled the abilities pretty well, except it did not get the Shuri ult. And so we weren't sure if the Shuri ult was the very next move, and as it so turns out, it was. And so it made for some problems going in with the counter I was trying to use. Now, perhaps another sack and this would have worked, because I could have just pulled the Shuri ability and just stopped there and then go in, but it's still not a guarantee that it would have worked. So what you'll see is a canceled attack with the Superior 6 and Old Man Logan, and then I said, at least I can try it with a pre-taunt and maybe try to mix the team up a bit, and you can see how that's an epic fail as well. So in planning all the rooms, my original plan was to sack this room with the Infinity Watch, which may have still not worked out as well, and then follow up with the Illuminati. And I think for all intents and purposes, maybe it's just a sack to exhaust the Black Knight and then go in with Illuminati. And so that'll probably be my approach if I see this again, to have a chance to beat this room. But you can see here that, you know, maybe if I were able to pull the Shuri's ult, a double sack would work. I just think where I'm at now, double sacking this room with what you'll see my opponent has as the rest of his defense is not going to help me towards a win. And that's kind of how I got the fumble here. And so even though this room wasn't cleared, it's like, well, just still try this alternative plan I was going with, because I was going to try the safe route, which I'll explain as we go. But the alternative plan did not work out as well either. And that's mostly because this room here is like, well, how do you beat this room? And so my first plan was to go in with Odin and just counter it and see if I could one-shot it. And that may have been the play, because as you'll see later on, he's got a Mephisto where I probably could have just double-sacked that. But at the end of the day, my thought was still to use Illuminati here, and that's how I kind of got stuck on the room one anyway. But as you can see, I double-sacked this, and then the thought was, let's go with Illuminati and Apoc. And perhaps this could work. There was some discussion on the second sack where we used Emma, and that may have been a mistake, because what it did is it allowed Odin to use his special. Now, had Odin not used his special, this team could have worked. And what you'll see here is when the Apoc gets really low, there could have been a better play. And this is something Bendable mentioned, because he was in the chat. He said, you know, when you were that low, he said, if it were me, I would have used the special, and that would have healed Apoc up. My concern was that I thought that that Odin would go. The problem is that Apoc does do his Falcon Punch, but the way the Annihilators are built, he doesn't follow up immediately. And so, you know, he dies, and that just pretty much makes it so that this counter doesn't work. And at this point, I don't think it really mattered. I didn't do this attack first, so you'll see some of the other rooms and how they went, and as well as I did do room 1 before I did this room. So my loss was pretty assured, but I just wanted to see how this could play out, because you can see how well Illuminati does against this Odin team, as long as you can get a proper sack and perhaps play that Apoc ability a little bit better. And so here I've seen some guys go in. I think the Seer did Tangle Web, but I've seen some other guys do it too. So I figured I'd try Tangle Web. Even though the Moon Knight and Agatha are really strong, the blind does help. And so this is just pretty much the same counter we've been using for a very long time. It's just extended because it takes a little more work to kill the Moon Knight, and it definitely takes a while to kill the Agatha because she's so big. And a lot of guys have 2 and 3 diamonds on her, G19, and possibly even purple 3. So she's got a lot of health, and that's really the only thing that is of an issue here. But I think it does, at least in my case, if I'm going to see this particular setup, is to still keep Tangle Web on offense, because there are some options where Weaver could go into a defense on a Mephisto team like Spider Society, and then that would prevent Odin from doing the one shot. So that's something to think about there. The thing is as we get the Night Stalkers, now we have Blade, will the Tangle Web be useful in that counter? So I just need to play that out and see how that goes. Now, you can see here I did what I've been doing lately, the Secret Defenders and Odin as a counter. And it didn't play the same exact way, but it did, it's pretty steady. And that could have been the placement order. I'm not sure if before I've put Photon behind Hard Light, and maybe that's the better move, or maybe this is. I'm not sure. At the end of the day, Odin still is the carry, and so what you're hoping for is to have at least Photon, I think, survive, because her passive is pretty key. If Robbie were able to survive, he would be the number 2 on this counter, but his health is so low, and they seem to target him, that it's very hard for him to survive. I think before I was able to get off his passive, and that was clutch, and this one is not. And that's why I was saying, like, the Photon is a little more of a second pick for this team to make sure that you get the damage in. And perhaps even since we know that the Hard Light is going to die, maybe Robbie should go behind Hard Light, because the best I think we can hope for is for him to get off his one ability, which is, I believe, is a special. And then that way Photon and Black Cat could survive. I think the only issue there is that by the 2 of them being together, if they were both hit, then it could throw this counter off quite a bit. So I'll do some thinking on that, but perhaps this is a better placement because Black Cat has 9 lives, and so she seems to survive much better behind Hard Light, and Photon does well in the corner. And at the end of the day, this counter does work to get the job done. Now here I just wanted to try out Blade. I could have gone in with Blade, Ultimus, and the Cabal team, but I wanted to see if Blade could work on the Masters of Evil. And I believe I had tried this after I'd already lost room 1. It's like, well, let's just see how Blade works. And perhaps a bigger Blade will come in and do the damage needed. I do have a decent sized Blade because I bought the deal where you get the 4 red. The only thing is he's not coming in doing the damage that you'd like to see him do if you're going to put him on an older team like this Masters of Evil. And so at the end of the day, if they're not whittled down, or you don't have the control you need on the Nightcrawler and the Forge at this point, I think you don't really have a chance to win, especially with a Dorm there. And so you'll see how this battle falls apart. And I do follow it up with Cabal, so you can see how strong this team is, because the Cabal counter was kind of sketchy as well. But at the end of the day, this is about trying out Blade. And so my thought is, going into next week, Blade will be on defense, because I don't see where I can use him on offense at the moment with the other teams I've been building up. So most likely until we get at least Man Thing, which Man Thing may still make this a defensive team, but I do think the team itself will be an offensive team. So once I get Man Thing, I think the whole Night Stalkers will go to offense. And then, of course, the 5th makes them definitely an offensive team. Now, you see here, the way I left things, Nightcrawler just takes off. And so that puts in a lot of damage on this team. But the Cabal team with Ultimates is pretty strong. And somehow Zemo gets enough health to survive a lot of this to last and at least get off his ult, which was clutch. And after that, it's just Cabal takes over and does what Cabal does. But at the end of the day, had I been going for the win because I knew I had already lost, then Cabal would have been the first pick. And perhaps even it would have been Kang and Titania on this to make sure I got this room cleared out. And so here it just is turning out that the New Warriors are still a team that you can use if you see the full Orchis. And this is in room 6. And it doesn't appear that the blinds are going to affect the New Warriors here. I've done this counter twice. This one was a little bit sketchier because of the placement. But at the end of the day, it was still a one-shot. And so it seems to be very reliable. I think the key thing is still that when you do the spread, you want to make sure you hit the Scientist Supreme. So I did the spread right there on Scientist Supreme, and that way I was able to hit that clump right over on the right. And I think once you get her under control or her killed, then quite naturally you want to go for Lady Deathstrike, and that makes this counter kind of a for sure thing. The key thing I think here is you do want to be aware that there's a 25% chance that the Scientist Supreme can revive someone. And so that's why I've been leaning towards doing the Death Pool's ultimate on her to make sure that she's gone and doesn't come back.